Danny Rogers is the son of the 1980s TV favourite Ted Rogers, who was well known for presenting 3-2-1. But away from the cameras, his life was one of ups and downs, a tale which is currently being told in a new one-man show called Bin and Gone, which Danny performs all over the country. I recently caught up with Danny and started asking him why he thought it important to tell his dad's story.
I think it's important to tell my dad's story in order to honour my dad's legacy, really, because the children of the 70s and 80s grew up watching 3-2-1, didn't know what my dad had achieved in his career prior to then, that he was the host of Sunday Night at London Palladium, as well as a host of the Royal Variety Performance, then being asked personally by the likes of Perry Como and Bing Crosby to be the comedian of choice for their American and British tours. So it gives an insight to that generation of what my dad had achieved, but also with his downfall, how he carried on a personal level, what the man was like behind the 3-2-1 gesture. And just basically just to celebrate his memory and his legacy.
Was it difficult to write the show, especially revisiting the time when your dad was out of work and had no money?
Yes, it was tricky to write the show and piece it together. I met the writer Tom Glover on numerous occasions to try and get a time frame of my dad's career, and then as well as him asking me personal questions about me growing up with my dad and his downfall. So yes, it was tricky to sort of relive those moments, I suppose, of my dad, having a rented car and a rented house, not being able to afford sort of birthday presents and things like that. But at the same time, growing up, I kind of understood that was what was going on. But I knew my dad was doing any possible job in order to honour his debts that he had to pay. But I also wanted to make sure that my family were happy in what was being said in the show as well. It did take some time. It wasn't just done overnight. We started writing back in 2014 and we didn't premiere the show until 2018, as we wanted to make sure that it was pieced together and it was right and it wasn't done in a cynical way or anything or any way to upset anybody for all the wrong reasons. But just to mainly show that, my dad has gone through difficult times and us as a family, but he fought on. And that's what amazes me, really, is that he left a great legacy in showing that, really. And that's primarily why it had to be in the play, sadly, is to show what the man had in personal times. And I'm sure other people can relate to that. Everybody sadly goes through difficult times. And I guess it's quite refreshing in a way to know that just because you're a celebrity, it can happen to anybody. That sadly no one's immune to these things. So then it makes it, as I say, it's completely personal level.
When you were younger, Danny, did you know how famous your dad was?
Well, it wasn't actually till my dad doing a McDonald's commercial that was being pumped out every 5 minutes on Sky and then all the channels. It wasn't actually till that I started to realise how famous Dad was, really, because I had been born after 3-2-1 was axed, so I was watching 3-2-1 with my dad on Challenge, sort of trying to get to grips with it and about the show. So I didn't, because it wasn't being shown on the ITV anymore, I guess I was sort of trying to piece together how famous it was, really. So I was just sort of playing catch up with the children that grew up in the 70s and 80s and things. So I guess it wasn't actually till watching my dad on commercials and sort of TV appearances such as TFI Friday with the Spice Girls that I started to go, oh gosh, he really is quite famous then, isn't he? So yeah, I was just playing catch up with the likes who watch my dad on primetime TV on a Saturday night. So and then sort of being in sort of, I guess, summer shows and pantomimes. Then starting to get to grips that, gosh, yeah, there's a lot to my dad that I'm trying to sort of catch up on, really. And funny enough, watching sort of 3-2-1 with him on Challenge, he would ask me, "Oh, do you know what that clue means?" And I'll be like, "Could it be the car?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine," and I'm there standing there reading it. So So it was quite funny, really. But yes, quite mad to say that it was only through sort of TV appearances and summer shows and pantomimes that I started to get to grips as a young boy growing up in the 90s of what my dad had achieved and how big a star he was.
What was your dad like away from the cameras and the spotlight?
I guess quite simply, he was just dad, really. He was a lovely man, and just, I don't know, would still tell jokes and things like that. It was just very supportive. I mean, I know that his idol was Danny Kaye, and so much so named me after him. And I would sort of try and learn the Danny Kaye songs, and I'd be really nervous, so I wouldn't let him sort of watch me do it, but I'd be like, oh, can you come upstairs but stand outside my bedroom and listen to me? And then once I'd done the song, whatever, he'd then come back in and say, oh yeah, that was good, but yeah, need more diction on this bit, and just be so supportive. He would always come and support us with my sister when she was in Clemency Jane. He would come and watch her. If I was playing football, he would come and see the matches and things. And as I said, he was just hilarious. I remember coming back from pantomime, the weather had been bad, so we stayed in a B&B, and he would always want to look immaculate, so he would always have his comb in his back pocket of his trousers. And in the morning he was on the phone, so I got his comb and I started doing my hair, and since he was sat down, I put the comb back in his back pocket, but it wasn't fully in his back pocket, it was sort of still slightly hanging out. So he had his jacket on, so he went downstairs and put his jacket on the chair and sat down, and then went, oh, do you want some orange juice? I went, oh yes please. So he got up, and the comb had hooked onto his jacket, and got up and started dragging it along the floor, and I started to see what was going on, started to laugh. And he went, what? And as he went, what? He turned, and the jacket then turned as if it was like a tail to him, and it was just so funny. I mean, obviously he'd done it on purpose, but being about 9 or 10 at the time, I just thought it was absolutely hilarious. So that's what Dad was like, really, always, clowning around and just being a supportive dad to his kids and his family, really.
In conversation this afternoon with Danny Rogers, there'll be more from Danny after some more music here on Delux Radio. This afternoon, I'm talking to Danny Rogers, the son of Ted Rogers. Danny is currently touring with a one-man show called Been and Gone, which tells the tale of his dad, his rise to fame, and his fall from grace. I continued the chat with Danny, asking him about his own interest in show business and where they began.
My showbiz interest started when I was watching my dad sort of in summer seasons or pantomimes, really. I would be watching him in the wings doing his act, and I would be mimicking him in the wings, literally doing exactly the same thing as he was doing. And because around pantomime, it's my birthday a week before Christmas, so for me it was just magic, because I was out of school and I could see all the lights and the all the components of the show coming together and watch my dad's act, and I just loved it as a kid. I would watch the pantomime every day and would not get bored, and then sort of seeing Dusty Bin come on, but that was just magic to me, absolutely magic. And then my dad was really kind. He would then say to people, oh, is it all right if Danny comes in and just does a little bit with the lights just to see how they go on, off and on, or is it all right if he just presses that button that makes the oven and the kitchen routine blow up? So yes, I was just sort of engrossed by it all, really, and just loved every minute of it. And then sort of in summer seasons, Dad was with Bernie Clifton, so I got a chance to sort of be in his act a little bit. And then my dad, bless him, he brought me on with my suit, and I did the 3-2-1 signature with him, and then we walked off. So yeah, I just loved every minute of it, the whole atmosphere of being in a theatre and with a big sort of company cast. It was just magic, absolutely magic. So that's exactly where I got the bug from, and knew from there on in that's what I wanted to do. To be a plumber was out the question, for certainly. And my mum, she was a Royal Ballet and Bluebell dancer, so yes, it's definitely in the blood.
So Danny, tell us about the show Been and Gone. What's it about?
Been and Gone really is a story of hope and joy, but also sadness and loss. it's my dad's story as well as my story, and it's a story of light entertainment. It's completely different to the other shows such as Morecambe or Wisdom of a Fool, in the fact that it's a tribute show, but in a new perspective, in the fact that it's his son portraying his dad, as well as talking about himself and his sort of personal story, really, which I think the audience like as such, because it's true and it's something completely different to any other show that's sort of going out there, really. And also within the show, we have videos of my dad that I recreate, and that are both going on at the same time. So people who are looking see the mannerisms that happen exactly at the same time and go, gosh, it's like the same person's actually in the room, but it's not. It's his dad on the TV screen, but it's his son right next to him. So it's quite surreal. And I get to recreate some of my dad's stand-up routines, as well as get to perform sort of singing and dancing and stuff. And I sort of delve into my own career, and the fact that nowadays variety sort of X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, so I recreate my Britain's Got Talent audition, which is a laugh in itself, really. And we also have a bit of audience participation in the fact that we do a section of 3, 2, 1, that we get the clues out, and Dusty Bin makes an appearance, and at the end of the show people can get a picture with Dusty Bin and the big red book, as well as having a look through it and have a chat with me afterwards. So it's quite an informal piece, and that's how I like it. I like it to be quite intimate with the audience as well. So I think the audience gets to take away something about my dad and about myself, that they get to know more about the man that they grew up with watching in the 70s and 80s, as well as for people who didn't, but get to know more about the man that was Ted Rogers, which I think is lovely. And it's amazing too, because people have their own stories of how they met my dad, and it's just marvellous to hear. And I guess I'm quite lucky in some ways in the fact that I've got sort of pictures and videotapes, but I have the internet, whereas people who don't have a famous parent, they just only have probably pictures and maybe the odd one videotape. So I have to sort of reassure myself that I'm very lucky in what I do have, really. And it's strange in the fact that it keeps them alive, really. But that's the elements of the show.
What do you think your father would think if he was still alive and he saw the show?
Well, I think first of all he'd be annoyed, because I would have told everybody how old he actually was rather than what the age of the obituaries gave his age to be. So I think for that he would have been a bit annoyed. But I can only sort of take it from sort of family and friends and the audiences alike who've come to see the show. I can only take it from their comment of what Dad would think of it, by them saying that he'd just be extremely proud of what you've done and what you've achieved, really. So from hearing on that basis, I certainly hope he would have been. I love my dad very much, and wouldn't want to do anything else but make him proud.
Where can people find out more information about future shows?
By looking on the website for Bin and Gone, which is www.binandgoneplay.co.uk. You can also find us on Facebook, give us a like, or follow us on Twitter, and you can also find us on Instagram.
Danny, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you very much, Phil, for having me.